Hey guys, just here, and my friends have been requesting this for a long time now. This is a Russia paper by memory, typed up from Kane or Dark Lord 8237. I'll leave a link to his channel and to his Discord server in the description below. So yeah, it's Russia. He knows everything about Russia pretty much. So let's just I'm blocking his last name because privacy reasons. Alright, there we go. This is my second attempt making this video, so let's do this again and watch me fail trying to pronounce stuff. Alright. Our Russia started when the Great Mongolian state invaded everyone around them, including the nations that were inside Russia. One of the Russian protectorates of the Mongols was a rich state called Moscow. While the Mongols were busy trying to invade the rest of Europe, Moscow gained their trust and eventually bought their freedom and declared independence. At first, the Mongols were alright with this, but as Moscow invaded every one of the Mongol-Russian puppet states, they began to worry, and right, they were to worry. Eventually, the Mongols collapsed because of the lack of care to their economy and bad military command. Moscow reunited all of Russia for the very first time under rule of the Tsar. The Tsardom of Russia was led by a man called Ivan IV. Yeah, just for your info, Tsar. It's pronounced Tsar, not Tsar, Tsar. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. What am I doing? Alright. I'm just cleaning my glasses. There's something here. I'm just cleaning my glasses. Alright. Later in history, the Russians revolted because Ivan was a terrible leader. Let's get past the French going nuts and invading them and also failing. All at the same time, let us go to the end of the Tsardom starting in 1914, the beginning of the First World War. It's just another word for World War, yeah. The Tsardom system was not working well, and the workers were revolting behind Vladimir Lenin. Russia was in the Entente. I don't know what that says. Entente? I don't know. Russia was in the Entente, allied directly with France and the British Empire. Against Germany, they were troubled because they could not produce more equipment to put the enemy down. In 1917, the Bolsheviks successfully started a revolution, staged Petrograd, later renamed Leningrad. Later that year, the Bolsheviks had control over the entire country and gave Germany land and peace. Let me read that. Later that year, the Bolsheviks had control over the entire country and gave Germany land and peace. Hold on, my brother's coming into the room. Alright. Yeah, let's reread that for the second and third time. Later that year, the Bolsheviks had control over the entire country and gave Germany land and peace. Came between the newly found Soviet Union and the German Empire under the rule of Kaiser Wilhelm II, who would later abdicate and give up, costing Germany the entire war. Fun fact, King George V of England, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, and Tsar Nicholas II of the Russian Empire were all cousins, and later Russia and England led the First World War against Wilhelm II. Alright, yeah. Has it been the next page already? Yeah, I think so. Hold on. No, it has not been the next page yet. There's many pages to this. Yeah. Alright. So there's a little map of the USSR, all their territory and stuff. Yeah. Alright. So many pages. This might be part 1 to this, because I don't know. Maybe. Now let us continue with the rule of Lenin, Stalin, Khrushchev, Gorbachev, and other miscellaneous Soviet leaders that did not last long. Oddly enough, the only Soviet leader born in the Soviet Union was Gorbachev. In fact, he's still alive today, living in modern Ukraine. Lenin as a whole did just about 2 things really interesting, worth talking about. 1, forming the Soviet Union. 2, bringing peace to the Germans in World War I. 3, I guess, dying. So, let's move on to Josip Jugoslavili. I don't know how to pronounce his last name still, even though Kane told me like a million times. But yeah. Josip Jugoslavili, I don't know. Or his Communist Party name, Joseph Stalin. Little So-So, as his parents like to call him, was born in the modern country of Georgia. But then it was a part of the Russian Empire. I can't talk. Recently, Tsar Alexander II was assassinated. The next to be Tsar was Nicholas II, and he would also be the last Tsar of the mighty Russian Empire from 1721 to 1917. Stalin, during the time Lenin was in the premier role, was an assistant to Lenin and his second choice for the next leader. When Lenin died, Stalin had known that Leon Trotsky would be the next leader without interference in the government. So Stalin was his criminal underground and his other people who would support him no matter what, and they worked to frame Trotsky. And it worked. Alright. He would be banished to Mexico until something we will cover later. In 1939, World War II began, and Hitler and Stalin had a non-aggression pact and attacked Poland together with Russia, taking the eastern half of Poland. Afterwards, the Soviets had confidence in their own country, but Stalin still had worries about Trotsky. So little Stalin sent an assassin to kill him with an ice axe, and it worked. Trotsky was dead. So, Kate told me that he hit him in the back of the neck like, "Wata!" Something like that. Some Assassin's Creed stuff. It's pretty legit. So yeah, a new chapter had officially began in the Soviet Union, and it would last for a grueling 24 years from 1929 to 1953. Within the 30s and early 40s, Stalin had a hunch that Germany was to attack soon, but the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact sealed an alliance, the two foreign powers. Oh my gosh, so much reading. But 2 years later, from when it was signed in 1941, when Stalin was vulnerable, a full-scale invasion was set forward on the Soviet Union, leaving their entire front exposed and lots of lost land to Hitler's war machine. The invasion was called Operation Barbarossa, and its mission was to take Ibenstrom, or everything until they get to Asia and Ural Mountains. Out of confidence, the Japanese attacked America, expecting the Germans to be able to support them from the east, since they would control Siberia if they had success in Operation Barbarossa. But of course that didn't happen. In the winter of 1942, the Germans weren't prepared for the harsh winters. The Germans were quickly pushed out of the Soviet Union in 1943 to 1944. The Germans were very scared because of the advance into German lands on the eastern and western front, and Stalin took advantage of that. By the end of the war, a decision by the Allies to let the Russians take Berlin after all they lost when they had entered the war. This officially is the beginning of what British Prime Minister Winston Churchill called the Iron Curtain. And here's a little map of the Cold War. Yeet yeet. Ski ski. Yeah, so the red is Western Bloc, the blue is Eastern Bloc, and the white is... I'm not sure, I can't read that. Alright, before we continue, I will show you pictures of flags and leaders of Russia so far. Then we move to the Long Cold War. Scroll down. So that's Tsar Alexander II. He, 1818 to 1881. I think that was their birth and death. I forgot. He died of an assassination. Tsar, oh my gosh, that voice scared. Tsar Nicholas II, 1968 to 1918, died of assassination. Scroll down. Vladimir Lenin, 1870 to 1924, died of hemorrhagic stroke. Joseph Stalin, 1878 to 1953, died of cerebral hemorrhage. So this is the Tsardom of Russia flag, right there, somewhere, right there, down there, yeah. And then there's the Soviet Union flag. Alright. Even more reading. Yeah, let's go. Alright. Now we begin once more in a new age of the Cold War. The Cold War, if you don't know, was a stage in between 1945 to 1991 between the US and the USSR. The countries were not directly at war. As they both know, with the amount of nuclear bombs they have would sure cause World War II and an apocalypse from all the radiation. So the Soviet government influenced communist uprisings in other countries, causing controversy and death all over the world. From Cuba to Korea, communism was on the rise. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Alright. There were two alliances in our story. NATO, with policies of keep the US and keep the Russians out and keep the Germans down, founded to create and keep the peace in the world from falling into a all-out state of war. Was effective as still is today. Now the other faction was the Warsaw Pact. Their policies were kept a secret, but it was founded that after the Soviet request with NATO was declined. So between the Soviet satellite states and other communist countries, after this, it was full-out fighting all over the world between the two factions by sending troops to second and third world countries to support their side. It often included the British, the French, the US, and Germany. The other side often included the Soviets and China, although two to four the Chinese and Soviets had larger forces than all of them. The first of all of the conflicts was one of the most deadliest human wars to take place in only 3 years, 1950 to 1953. The Korean War was not to have the deadliest amount of civilian casualties topping World War II. The Korean War, splitting the North under communism and the South under a democracy. That's a type of World War, you told me. War technically lasted 70 years because there at the time was no peace treaty signed, and it is today the most heavily guarded border in the world. The most memorable war in the Cold War for the Americans would definitely be the Vietnam War. The American death toll was 58,220 under the Korean death toll, but Americans tend to remember the Vietnamese better because of the harsh tactics they used. The next things that happened were in the African country of Angola, when surprisingly the Chinese sided with NATO this time and fought against the Soviet Union. Still in every conflict except the Koreans, the Soviet Union won. After strengthening the hold of communism over Asia, Europe, and the New World along with Africa, it seemed that the Soviets would prevail, but in the late 80s and early 90s, Gorbachev, at the time leader of the Soviet Union, his reforms made the collapse of the country happen very fast. In early 1991, most Soviet citizens lost hope in the communist system, and they took over the weak government, and a weaker one took place. The end of the Soviet Union has now taken place. Nikita Khrushchev died of heart attack 1894-1971. Mikhail Gorbachev, still alive today, 1931 present. Wait, I think. Alright, never mind. The day of December 25th, 1991, Christmas in 1991, was the dawn of a new nation, the Russian Federation. The very first leader of the newly founded nation was Boris Yeltsin. He won the popular vote with 57% of the country voting for him. He would resign the last day of the millennia on December 31st, 1991. The next leader of the Russian Federation would be the KGB spy we all know and love, Vladimir Putin. I have a biography of him at school, so yeah. His presidency would start May 7th, 2000 to May 7th, 2008. Only he will come back later. The next person to live in the solid gold walls of the Kremlin would be Dmitry Medvedev. He served from when Putin stopped to 4 years later in 2012. He did barely anything as the Kremlin of Russia. In the Russian 2012 election, Vladimir Putin ran for president again and is the acting Kremlin of the Russian Federation. Putin, his nationalistic views as he is very harsh and lies to his people every day. His term expires in 2024. So this is Yeltsin, first president, alright. Died of congestive heart failure, 1931 to 2007, alright. Vladimir Putin, the second president, still alive today, but this is his first, first president picture, 1952 present, and then this is Dmitry Medvedev, third president, still alive today, 1965 present. Then this is pretty much the now Vladimir Putin, the fourth president. Yeah, so he ran for president twice. Alright, so this is the picture, right there. Yeah. You can see the Russian Federation. It's a giant orange blob. Yeah. And there's a Russian flag. Now, today's Russian flag. And Kane's full name is at the bottom. I'm going to be blurring out his last name because privacy and all that stuff. So, yeah. I just read like 12 pages, I think. So yeah, I'll see you guys in like a second. Alright guys, so that was today's video. I read about 12 pages of history about Russia. And I asked Kane to write that paper for me. And then when it was done, he asked me to make a video on it. I'm like, yeah, sure. That was like 3 weeks ago. Sorry for holding it back, but... There's a piece of hair. Yeah. Oh, there it is again. Ooh. There we go. Sorry for holding it back, Kane, but at least I finally did it now. Yeah. Thanks, Kane, for typing that. I'm gonna put his channel link in the description below and put his Discord link in the description below as well. And if you guys like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you want me to read more papers that he's typed up, like his Germany paper, that's like 8 pages, then tell me in the comments below. And if you're not subscribed yet, why don't you go ahead and go subscribe. Press that red button that says subscribe down there. So yeah, yeah. And if you want to be the first few to see my newest videos, or even get just notified when I upload a new video or start a live stream sometime, hit the notification bell so you can get notified about my channel. And yeah, guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Oh man, I actually gotta go poop right now.